Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 224. Without any delay, start explanation. Tang Wulin squinted his eyes. According to my estimate, I think I've been here for 6 months. The academy told me that this was a 2-year military training program before I came. Yet, you're telling me I've passed? I'm afraid that you're mistaken if you think you can fool me. The huge old man walked to a spot in front of Tang Wulin. Why would I fool you? That was meant for ordinary people. Do you think that everyone can complete the task of crossing the sea and hijacking an aircraft in 3 months like you? Actually, none of your friends can complete it. You're the only person capable of completing it at present. It's impossible to pass without completing that task. I believe that you have some expectations of your own too. How can Shrek Academy possibly send all of you to your doom? These are all arranged by the Academy. As a matter of fact, do you know our past history? The huge old man spoke smilingly. Past history? Tang Wulin squinted his eyes as he did not have any intention to trust the huge old man. The huge old man chuckled. It's fine if you don't believe me. When I'm done narrating, I bet you'll begin to believe me. Let me tell you how the Demon Island was formed. He took the liberty to approach Tang Wulin before he took a seat as he was saying that. Despite being seated, he was still slightly taller than Tang Wulin. He waved his right hand once and conjured a table before him. Then, he began pulling a variety of food from thin air and placing them on the table. Tang Wulin took 2 steps back. A strong fragrance filled his nose, making him feel terribly hungry. However, he would not act rashly after having gone through Old Demon Devour's training. The huge old man waved his hands. Come out, Lust. In the flash of a shadow, the young version of Old Demon Lust appeared out of thin air once again and sat down on one side of the table. The huge old man spoke. When I'm done, you can begin to teach him those knowledge. Old Demon Lust nodded. Sure. I think a month should be enough for him with his natural endowments. Tang Wulin was still vigilant despite everything before his eyes appearing genuinely realistic. The huge old man smiled. All right. Let's begin right from the beginning. The Demon Archipelago appeared suddenly over 1,000 years ago. Its appearance was inevitable, but it was by chance also. To be exact, we have no idea what really happened even till now. Of course, we were not truly demons back then. In fact, we were once humans. The Demon Island was formed after countless fragments fell from the sky into the sea. There are 2 opposing energies in this Demon Archipelago which I believe you sensed already. One is the incomparably dense life force, while the other is the destructive energy capable of destroying everything. It was brought by the destruction fragment which you've seen before. Old Demon Blight wasn't lying to you. There's a piece of the destruction fragment on each island, differing only in size, but there's also a dense life force with each piece of the destruction fragment. It's precisely because of the equilibrium between these 2 energies that resulted in the destructive energy not leaking to the outside and causing a fatal catastrophe on Doluo continent. According to our research for many years, we've accumulated a number of discoveries. We suspect that the dense life force and destructive energies don't originate from the continent itself, perhaps not even our planet. Tang Wulin could not help responding to what he heard. Not from our planet. Could it be that it came from external worlds? Mankind, with the advancement of science, had discovered that Doluo continent, where they were living at present, Star Luo continent, and Heaven Do continent were all situated on an enormous planet. The planet was named Doluo Star. At the same time, countless stars were discovered in the vast galaxy through astronomical observations. There were many more things that the current technologies had not discovered yet. Nonetheless, Doluo continent, with the most advanced technology amongst the 3 continents, was already developing their technology for space exploration. The huge old man spoke. That's right, it's probably from an external world. Moreover, it could possibly be related to us according to our analysis. You probably know that it has already been a very long time since someone from the human world managed to achieve godhood, such as Tang sect's first ancestor Tang San, and Spirit Pagoda's founder Spirit Ice Doluo Huiyu Hao. Tang Wulin asked, does the godhood truly exist? The huge old man replied without the slightest hesitation, yes. There are many detailed ancient recordings about the first ancestor Tang San's godhood on the continent. There were more than just him who achieved godhood. The rest of the 6 people from the Shrek 7 monsters whom he led had all become gods and inherited different godhoods before ascending to the divine realm. Even the first ancestor Tang San handed down some information about the divine realm too. To our knowledge, the divine realm exists. The so-called divine realm is actually the world where the powerhouses lived after they had achieved a certain level in life. That world administers the low-ranking worlds like ours. There are also ranks within the divine realm. The lowest rank godhood is known as God King. The 5 God Kings form the Council of Divine Realm Committee in the divine realm to administer the destiny of the small worlds like ours. However, it seems that due to some legal constraints, they can't interfere too much in our low-ranking world. This was the first time Tang Wulin had ever heard of such a story. Even though he was still vigilant, he was attracted to the huge old man's narrative. The huge old man continued, after the first ancestor Tang San became a god, he was in one of the 5 great God King's good graces and finally became the God King's successor. He inherited the godhood positions of the Sea God and the Xiao God, thereby becoming one of the 5 great God Kings. The remaining 4 of the 5 great God Kings were the Kindness God, the Evil God, the Life God, and the Destruction God. The 5 of them took charge of the divine realm. So naturally, they assumed full charge of our Dolor star as well. For a few millennia, we didn't have any powerhouse capable of sensing the divine realm's existence ever since Spirit Ice Dolor's ascension. There is no need for you to doubt this information that has been passed down from Shrek Academy, Tang Sect, and Spirit Pagoda's high-ranking officials for generations. When the top powerhouses of these 3 great organizations achieved a certain level, they would attempt to sense the existence of the divine realm, but no one has managed to sense that world anymore. I can't think of any other explanation apart from there being something wrong with the divine realm itself. Tang Wulin took a deep breath. So you're saying that the divine realm doesn't exist anymore? The huge old man shook his head. No one knows the actual situation and no one knows what happened to the divine realm. However, we believe that something must have happened to the divine realm. Tang Wulin spoke, so how is that related to the Demon Island then? The huge old man spoke, you already heard me earlier that there are the Life God and the Destruction God amongst the 5 great God Kings. Well, can't you make the association? Tang Wulin was shocked. So you're saying that the existence of the Demon Island is related to the 2 great God Kings? The huge old man smiled while old Demon Lust, who was by his side, spoke, precisely. About 2,000 years ago, the life force and destructive energies suddenly descended from the sky. The destructive energy made those fragments and formed the demon archipelago, while the life force acted as a restraint on the destructive energy. The antonym of destruction is creation. The final objective of creation is the creation of life. Destruction and creation are opposites, yet they exist side by side and are inseparable. The existence of these 2 energies produced a massive influence in the sea region around here. The sea soul beasts that were already domineering at the time suddenly had such fast developments that it became a huge threat to the continent's coastal areas. From that time onward, the North Sea Army Corps was assigned here. Later on, our expedition took place. The huge old man smiled. Of course, old Demon Nightmare is just messing with all of you. In reality, how can we possibly harm you all? Even though we are truly lonely here, we all originated from the same source. Same source. Tang Wulin's chest tightened. The huge old man spoke, that is because we were the Shrek 7 monsters back in those days. We were duty-bound to explore the mysteries of life and destruction. Thereupon, we were sent here. Needless to say, we had a tragic encounter. Tang Wulin was shocked when he heard the words Shrek 7 monsters. Everything that had been inexplicable finally made sense. Moreover, he felt in his heart that every word that this fat old man had said was true. At this point, the old man and old Demon Lust were quiet. It was apparent that they were reminiscing about the past, for this was an extremely painful experience for them. Old Demon Lust sighed. When we first arrived in the vicinity of the Demon Island, we were quite astonished. There was a tremendous change in the sea over here. The Federation had given us the technology to assist our landing. Nevertheless, there was already a large amount of sea soul beasts in the waters, and they were all monstrously powerful. The Federation had issued a decree for millennia ago to protect soul beasts and to avoid hunting and killing as much as possible. The sea soul beasts were already the only soul beast branch that had remained largely untouched on the continent. Thus, we couldn't simply slay them. After we had landed, we began a series of inspections. I believe that all of you felt it when you arrived. Life essence couldn't exist in this place. There was only some kind of terrifyingly destructive aura. All vitality seemed to have been stripped from the area. We could tell that we wouldn't survive long over here. However, the inspection had to continue. We searched through everything on the island earnestly, looking for any living creature and clues that could possibly be found. Finally, we found the destruction fragment. We were rather powerful back then. At the very least, we were much stronger than all of you at the same rank. We found the valley and finally felt the presence of life essence. Our first reaction was that we must have made a lucky discovery. Thereupon, 7 of us remained in the valley to carry out a further survey. However, the situation at the time was different from now. When we arrived on the Demon Island, the island's destructive aura was on the outside while the life aura was contained within the valley. Meanwhile, the destruction fragment had yet to erupt. The fragment was only a chunk of an enormous crystal that seemed to hold unlimited energy. Can you imagine how we felt back then? It was as though we had discovered a treasure. An invaluable one at that. We belonged to Shrek, so of course we wished to bring this treasure back to the Academy to study it more thoroughly. As a result, we attempted all sorts of methods to retrieve that destruction fragment. That was when the disaster happened. The fat old man's face was filled with sorrow as he picked up a chicken leg from the table and vigorously bit off a chunk. Old Demon Lust smiled bitterly as she spoke. We had triggered the destruction fragment. There was almost no time to react before all 7 of us were torn to shreds by its horrific power. We were utterly obliterated. Oh! Tang San let out a soft gasp. The fat old man sighed and said, "At the time, we didn't feel much pain, but it was as though the entire world had become muddled and bewildering. Our surroundings were sometimes blurred, sometimes clear, sometimes bright and sometimes dark. It felt like everything was moving farther away while heading toward us at full speed." Old Demon Lust continued, "We lost track of time when we finally came to. We were awake, but we had lost our bodies. The bodies we were born with. We only existed in the form of souls on the island. On the other hand, we could exercise control over a portion of life and destruction energy within its boundaries. Afterward, we studied and discussed in detail that it was possible that the life energy had saved us. Destruction energy cost us our physical bodies, but the life energy preserved our souls. Thus, we became the old demons, taking on these ghastly forms. It was this same life energy that extended our longevity to such an extent that we could live for thousands of years. We have always been guarding this place to prevent curious people from exploring it. Indeed, the Demon Archipelago belonged to Shrek Academy from that moment onward as well. After all, we paid with our lives for it. There was no way for us to leave, because as soon as we left the location of the life force, our souls would dissipate. Hence, we could only remain here, waiting for Shrek Academy to send its most outstanding talents. We helped the Academy to carry out certain specialized methods of training. Just as the fat old man had claimed, Tang San believed him when he was done recounting the entire experience. All that he had said made complete and total sense. Old Demon Lust sat there as if she was grieving. We've lived far longer than ordinary people, yet we can never return to Shrek Academy. We can never see the magnificent Sea God's Island. We can never experience the bits and pieces of the human world ever again. We can only remain here and be old demons. The fat old man spoke. Our training is genuinely twisted amusement, and it's a painful ordeal for all of you. However, if you were to observe carefully, you'd find that, in truth, these methods greatly aid your development. Not only are we training you physically but also mentally. Only by encountering these harrowing experiences will you understand that life is precious and learn to face the world even more cautiously. Do you understand what I'm saying? Tang Wulin nodded slowly. He had learned how to fly an aircraft because of the old demon's torturous tricks. He had absorbed the destruction energy and fused it with his body, so now there was enough destruction in his aura for him to swim in and out of the sea with ease. Even though Old Demon Devour made him consume incomparably disgusting food, undoubtedly, it had given him life force which neutralized the potential damage from the destruction energy. He could fully utilize the process of life and destruction, and this allowed him to elevate himself. Old Demon Loathe used pain to hone their endurance till they could steady their hearts through excruciating agony. In turn, Old Demon Lust taught them the vanity of the world, so they could understand the need to remain in control even when tempted. It was definitely because of these ruthless methods that they had managed to make quantum leaps in such a short period of time. They had gone from adolescents to young adults and even learned how to adapt to society more readily. When he thought about it, Tang Wulin realized that the numerous training methods here were rare opportunities for them. He could never possibly receive this kind of training in the outside world or the academy. The fat old man smiled. "You're the first one to complete the training. Thus, you may now learn something from lust in a more amicable manner. When you're done, you shall remain on the island and wait for your companions. When all of them have passed the test or if any of them withdraw midway, then all of you shall leave at once. The rule states that those who come together must leave together." Tang Wulin nodded. Even though he was still on his guard, so he could not speak respectfully to them, but he already believed everything that he had heard. The fat old man stood up and nodded to Old Demon Lust before he turned around and walked in the direction of the forest. His rotund body gradually disappeared into the shadows. "How may I address him?" Tang Wulin asked Old Demon Lust. Old Demon Lust shook her head. "There's no need to address him. I don't think you'll be seeing him anymore before you leave. All right, let's begin, shall we? I can teach you many things. Even though these are not actual combat abilities, they'll vastly enhance your capabilities in battle, such as make-up techniques and disguise techniques." Old Demon Lust started imparting knowledge to Tang Wulin. It was just as the fat elder had said, the time for torture had passed. From now on, there would only be ordinary instruction. Tang Wulin had never been a negligent pupil. He learned quickly, and he soon found joy in this new undertaking. As Old Demon Lust had explained, although the things she taught him were not fighting skills, they greatly increased his chances of survival. They had, in the truest sense, shaped him into being an all-round talent. He was not instructed by Old Demon Lust alone. Soon enough, Old Demon Loathe, Old Demon Blight, Old Demon Nightmare, and Old Demon Devour appeared before him one after another and taught him numerous complex subjects. The old demons recounted a story to Tang Wulin. As early as 10,000 years ago, Shrek Academy had the idea to create a fully capable warrior. The academy wanted to nurture fighters who could adapt to different battlefields and possessed a plethora of abilities. When the plan was implemented, there was only a single case of success in the early stages. That was the founder of Spirit Pagoda, the legend of the generation, Spirit Istolu, or Yu Hao. Shrek Academy had still not abandoned this concept. The only difference was that the plan was no longer carried out within the academy grounds. It was done on the Demon Island instead. Only those who were able to pass all the tests on the various subjects within 1 year would qualify to take part in the all-round warrior course. Without a doubt, Tang Wulin was one of them, and he had the best performance in 1,000 years. Throughout all the previous trials, the part where they had to cultivate their hearts was naturally very taxing. It was hard enough to ensure that he did not collapse, but the most difficult thing, for him, was stealing the aircraft twice. This was especially true during the second time. It required the participant to cross the waters adjacent to the Demon Island, infiltrate the North Sea Army Corps and steal their aircraft. There were very few who were able to accomplish this. In the previous 200 years, it had only been achieved 3 times. Those 3 had all become the Sea God Pavilion's master in turn. Among them was the current Pavilion Master, Atlas Dolor, Yun Ming. Tang Wulin had always delighted in delving into various branches of knowledge. He started to merge this information and connect them together. He noticed that many things which he had normally taken for granted were actually extensive and profound when he devoted his heart to their study. For example, old Demon Devour would explain the wonders of various ingredients in detail to Tang Wulin. He taught him such skills as how to completely absorb the energy content in a meal, which was tied very closely to how the food was cooked. He also showed him how to differentiate between food sources, which included plants, animals, aquatic animals, and others. Tang Wulin would be showered with a large number of facts every day. For 3 whole months, Tang Wulin had practically not slept or rested as he learned and applied his new skills. It was also unknown how the 5 old demons managed to produce relevant materials for Tang Wulin to study and cultivate. All right, we've taught you everything we should. From now on, you must achieve mastery through a comprehensive study. You'll have many more things to experience and learn about on the continent. You'll only be able to better grasp all of it when you're back among civilization. Thank you, seniors. After these 3 months, Tang Wulin's disgust for the 5 old demons was completely gone. Also, he had a clear grasp on his companions' conditions. They were doing well. They had been on the demon archipelago for 10 months now. Although the others had not progressed as quickly as he had, at least none of them had collapsed. Even if they were unable to learn everything that was taught, they would have undergone a substantial amount of training throughout their time there. Old Demon said, "Stay on the island for your remaining time here. Now you should relax for a while. We have the best food here and a comfortable place for you to stay. When all your companions have finished their trials, you may leave." When Tang Wulin was brought to the living quarters, his entire being was shocked. He felt that to describe his new habitat merely as comfortable did not do it justice. It was a tree house. Tang Wulin did not know how the treehouse was made, but the life source here was much denser than in the valley. The treehouse was fully furnished with all kinds of equipment. There was even some modern furniture. The huge, comfy bed made him sleepy, and he got the urge to rest just by sitting on it. He had been tortured for 6 months and had studied for 3, so he was truly exhausted. When the old demon who sent him here had left, Tang Wulin lay himself down and fell asleep. He did not rise for 3 days and 3 nights. When he woke up from his dreams, old Demon Devour had already served gourmet cuisine brimming with life energy. As he ate, Tang Wulin was touched to the point of tears. He had finally endured everything, all the bitterness had passed, and now came the sweetness. The scenery on the Demon Island was not at all beautiful, but the treehouse Tang Wulin stayed on was a high vantage point. From there, he could see the ocean beyond the borders, and it was breathtaking. Tang Wulin himself had not felt so comfortable in a long time. He was so relaxed that when he had his fill and returned to the bed, he fell into another deep sleep very quickly. What could be more wonderful than this? He had the finest delicacies, comfortable living conditions, and nobody forced him to cultivate. He had freedom. He could leave as soon as his companions came out from their training grounds. All the pressure he had felt before had become non-existent. Tang Wulin leaned on the sofa in front of the treehouse's door and gazed at the ocean far away. His body felt warm, and he felt an indescribable relaxation and comfort. Even the cries of the insects sounded like music to him. Ugh! He stretched his limbs. Sleepiness crept up on him again. This was already his 3rd day here. He spent his days eating and looking at the ocean before he enjoyed a good slumber. What could be more comfortable than this? A faint smile appeared on Tang Wulin's face. He stood up and stretched vigorously before he turned around and returned to his room. With the fat elder as the leader, Old Demon Blight, Old Demon Devour, Old Demon Nightmare, and Old Demon Loath gathered together. The 6 demons were sitting inside a cavern. Before them was a frame which showed a scene. What it displayed was Tang Wulin just as he had stretched and gone back to his room. This young boy is really enjoying his time," said the old man with some pride. Old Demon pouted. "What are you feeling so proud for? We were the ones who helped you, you know. Still, I've succeeded with my own skills. But this little fellow is not an easy one to fool. We gave him so many things to learn in 3 months, and he surprisingly soaked it all up like a sponge. His learning abilities are beyond expectations. Alas, even though he's as shrewd as a ghost, did he not still end up drinking the water I used to wash my feet? Hold on, don't you be too pleased with yourself just yet. Old Demon Blight suddenly said with astonishment, the boy isn't asleep. The scene changed, and they were looking at the interior of the room. The focus was back on Tang Wulin. He wore a slightly carefree smile on his face, but he did not lie on the bed. Instead, he sat with his legs crossed, with his palms upturned and his hands placed his palm on his knees. His 5 centers were aligned with the sky. Surprisingly, he had started meditating. It was the standard cultivating pose of the mysterious heaven method. This? All 6 of the old demons stared with their mouths agape. With such a comfortable life and luxurious meals rich in life source, this young boy can still think of meditating? This is impossible. I mean, what a relaxing life he has. The portly old man's expression was one of astonishment and confusion. Old Demon Blight laughed. Told you not to be so pleased with yourself. Serves you right. Yes, Tang Wulin started meditating. He silently felt the dense life source in the air. With the flowing of the mysterious heaven method, he slowly absorbed this pure and rich origin energy into his own body. He did not intentionally accelerate the flowing of the mysterious heaven method. What he did was merely urge it on naturally. Using the method, he allowed his own bloodline aura to flow slowly. Tang Wulin was in no hurry. He silently settled the soul power and bloodline power within himself. The reason for his caution was that he worried that he would break through the Golden Dragon King's 9th seal through carelessness. If he did not find it necessary, and he did not lose control, he would never simply try to break the seal. The more he absorbed the essence of the Golden Dragon King, the stronger he became. Similarly, Tang Wulin's heart grew more alert as well. When the Golden Dragon King's essence brought him such incredible power, it also gave him something else. These unfathomable energies had been influencing him silently but surely. For example, Tang Wulin's fighting style had been constantly changing during his earlier years. Many a time, he had obtained victory through his wits. However, with the strengthening of his Golden Dragon King bloodline, he liked the direct and pure suppression of brute force more and more. Similarly, his emotions were also being affected, and he was more rigid than before. It had been almost a year since he arrived on Demon Island. In this year, he had undergone various trials and inhuman methods of torture. Throughout the entire process, the thing that had truly improved the most was his attitude. It was an influence on his spiritual side. This also enabled him to be aware of his own problems with greater clarity. Great power was often accompanied by untold dangers. Tang Wulin had already begun to notice the side effects brought by the Golden Dragon King bloodline. The bloodline was potent, but it was only effective if he could reign in such incredible strength. He could never allow himself to lose control. Thus, Tang Wulin fused his soul power and bloodline constantly through the mysterious heaven method during his cultivation process and relied on the method's pure continuous growth to filter and refine his bloodline energy. It may have seemed like this was not elevating his cultivation base, but in reality, it was reducing the possibility of hidden hazards in the future. Moreover, the mysterious heaven method allowed one's soul power to be condensed further. Despite his 5-ringed cultivation base, his soul power's density and purity, as compared to his peers of the same rank, was absolutely matchless. Similar to how he was diligently meditating now, he wished to master the things he had learned over the year through comprehensive self-cultivation, but he was in no rush to increase his soul power. In the beginning, when Mu Chen was teaching him to forge, the first thing he taught Tang Wulin was to build a strong foundation and elevate himself steadily. He could only advance further in the future by having a firm foundation. Thus, Tang Wulin was not in a hurry during his meditation. He propelled his soul power and blood essence power slowly, while he sensed even the most minuscule changes in every part of his body. The human body had endless mysteries, as did martial souls. In silence, he felt the variations in every inch of his physique with such precision that his focus was growing stronger and clearer. The intense sensation gradually brought him to a wondrous meditative state. 10 minutes. It has taken him only 10 minutes to enter deep meditation? This young boy, Old Demon Nightmare, was speechless while the other 5 old demons were staring in bewilderment. What should we do? What else can we do? Could it be that we're still capable of waking him from deep meditation? This isn't supposed to happen. It shouldn't be like this, the fat elder cried out in exasperation. Serves you right. Tang Wulin lost track of how long he sensed his consciousness opening. His soul power circulated naturally, with a rhythmic motion. As he gradually regained consciousness, he was astonished to discover that he was perceiving his body as being transparent. Everything in his body glowed with a faint golden color and fused together exactly according to his wishes. The golden and white soul power spiraled in synchronization with his bloodline power and formed a vortex inside his abdomen. In this small vortex, his soul power was extremely thick and had completely transformed into liquid. The gentle soul power vortex combined perfectly with his bloodline power and quietly spun. For Tang Wulin, it was obvious that his soul power had grown stronger, and more importantly, all the energy in his body seemed to be in order. He felt that his bones and internal organs had become translucent like crystal due to the continuous nourishment of his life source, making them even tougher. What was this? Even Tang Wulin did not fully comprehend what he had achieved, but he understood that his body had certainly reached a whole new level. At least, he knew about the creation of soul power vortices. Even so, a soul power vortex was only expected to form after one had attained 6 rings. This was because soul masters reached a major plateau when they cultivated to a rank of 7 rings. One of the most important issues of this bottleneck was the change in the quality of one's soul power. A 7-ringed soul sage must be able to form a soul core, or their cultivation base would not be able to reach rank 70. Then, the core would immediately be fused with their spirit soul or soul beast soul ring to elevate themselves and allow them to possess a 7th soul skill and enter a brand new domain. Only those who had achieved a 7-ringed cultivation base could be known as high-order soul masters. There was no doubt that Tang Wulin was still far from 7 rings, but this soul power vortex was essential for him to condense his soul core. A soul power vortex could also be described as the foundation of a soul core. Upon the appearance of a soul power vortex, a soul master would be able to absorb more origin energy through the spinning of the vortex that continuously condensed one's soul power until it formed a solid soul core. Tang Wulin's soul power was rank 53 at most right now, with a difference of more than 10 ranks before he could achieve 7 rings. Nevertheless, a soul master would generally begin to attempt formation of a soul power vortex only when they had reached rank 69. Then, they waited for the soul power vortex to condense into a soul core naturally to complete the qualitative leap. The process was much slower than cultivation at other ranks. This was also the reason why there were so few soul masters with a cultivation base over 7 rings. Once the soul core was formed, a soul master would achieve a massive upgrade in his perception and ability to draw in origin energy, making him incomparably powerful. By then, there was no need to worry about the exhaustion of one's soul power because the soul core would draw in origin energy as emergency reserves of its own accord. Generally, a soul sage's soul power would not run out as long as the battle was not overly exhausting. Tang Wulin was only rank 53, yet his soul power was already taking form. This not only signified that his soul power condensation rate was far above average, but more importantly, his understanding of his own soul power was similarly beyond expectations. Tang Wulin immediately knew what the biggest advantage of his soul power vortex would be. He could rely on the pull of the vortex to exercise even better control of his bloodline power such that it would not break through the 9th layer's seal unexpectedly. This was an unforeseen benefit. Tang Wulin could clearly tell that his soul power was elevated from rank 52 to rank 53 now. Even though he had managed to raise his soul power by only 2 ranks in 1 year, his elevation was exceedingly stable. Moreover, he learned so many things in that time. He decided to finish his meditation, as he had lost track of time. Just as Tang Wulin was preparing to end his meditation, his body shuddered ever so slightly as a miraculous feeling arose spontaneously. It felt as if there was a seed in his body, which had germinated and had begun to bloom with its life source. The sensation was so wonderful that Tang Wulin felt like he was instantly surrounded by incomparable life force. It was as if the life source was so thick it could devour his body completely in one moment. What was that? Buzz! All of the old demons raised their heads and looked to the source of the noise. The old demons were stupefied with apprehension. What's going on? They watched as a pillar of green light suddenly surged skyward from the island. The life source that was already so thick on the island suddenly bloomed exponentially. This was an extremely rare occurrence for them. The old demons could not help feeling shocked. Is that the life tide? I thought the life tide had just appeared 20 years ago. Why is it here again? The life tide was a phenomenon that happened on the demon island once every century. Every time the life tide appeared, it was the period when Demon Island's destructive power was suppressed to its weakest point, and also the moment when its life force was the thickest. As a result, a large amount of sea soul beasts would gather around the demon archipelago to absorb this life force so that they could evolve. This was the reason that so many powerful sea soul beasts lived near the demon archipelago. Rather than saying they were isolating the area, one could call them its guardians. The life tide was more beneficial to soul beasts than mankind because it was capable of causing benign changes in the soul beasts' bloodlines, or more accurately, life tide could refine the sea soul beasts' bloodlines. It had only been 2 decades since the last time this event had occurred, yet, to everyone's surprise, the life tide had appeared once again. This was an extraordinary situation. Streams of shadows flashed as the old demons quickly gathered together. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.